This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Chargers are 2-0 after beating the Raiders Monday night in Vegas 20-9. 3 interceptions by the Chargers defense, which also kept the Raiders out of the end zone. The Raiders were limited to 3 field goals. The Chargers are worried about linebacker Khalil Mack. He left the game in the first quarter with what could be a serious elbow injury. Mack will have an MRI exam Tuesday morning. A couple of surprising stats in the NFL after week 2 of the regular season. The Kansas City Chiefs are 0-2 for the first time since 2014, the last time they did not make the playoffs. The 2-0 Indianapolis Colts are the first team since 1966 to play their first 2 games without having to punt. The Colts are averaging 31 points per game and have made 3 of 5 fourth down conversions. The Dodgers lost at home to Philadelphia 6-5 in 10 innings. The win clinched the NL East title for the Phillies. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Tenacious Tuesdays, where we have 2 very special guests. One, the Assistant Majority Leader for the Illinois House of Representatives, Cam Buckner, will join us in the first hour. In our second hour, none other than Barbara Arnwine on Tenacious Tuesdays. Every time I talk to Barbara, I feel like I just spoke with her yesterday, and that's just how quickly the weeks are passing and how much I miss her over the 6 days until I hear her name and see her face again. Looking forward to that in the second hour. I want to opine here for just a moment in the first segment of this show before the Assistant Minority Leader joins us on the program. Majority Leader joins us. And that is this. When I was elected to Congress in 1995, I had to figure out where I was in the scheme of things. I found out at that moment that I was the 91st African American to ever serve in the Congress of the United States since the inception of the Republic. Number 91 at that time out of 11,700 Americans who had the privilege of serving in Congress before I was elected in 1995. And what was so fascinating to me was I decided and understood that North and South was really the division in the Congress. It wasn't Democrat versus Republican or liberal versus conservative, because in the final analysis, both sides would come together in various agreements. But I wanted to get to the root cause of the disagreement, so I took my staff on 3 different tours from Virginia around to Texas. We, at the government's expense, rented buses, stayed on military bases in various places around the South, and we toured the congressional districts of the South. A lot of time spent in Newt Gingrich's district. He was the Speaker of the House at the time. And at that time, his congressional district, along with districts in Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Texas, and Tennessee, and other districts throughout the South, had Civil War battle sites that we visited. Consistent with my thesis, in and on those battle sites, they talked about this army came over this hill, and this army went back over this hill, and the North came a-roaring this way, and the South stood and held their ground right here at this here hill, right here on this little creek. This is where our ancestors paid their debt. This is where they died. And so I said to myself, when I take a tour of these particular sites, why don't they say anything about the cause of the war? Why is slavery not mentioned? So I went up to a Park Service representative and I said, why don't you all ever talk about slavery on any of the battlefields? And the park representative said, Mr. Jackson, he didn't know me, and I didn't share with him that I was a member of Congress at the time. He shared with me the only way this story on this here battlefield is going to change is if Congress changes it. And so, unbeknownst to him, but clearly beknownst to me, and after having studied it, I went back to Capitol Hill. I began to write about my experience in a book that is available on Amazon.com, 2 versions, the one in 2001, A More Perfect Union, which details these trips that I speak of. And in 2001, when I released the book, I began systematically and methodically changing the narrative. I offered legislation in 2000, and I'm bringing this story up because the president decided to take the slave with the battle scars and the whipping stars and the lynching scars, if you will, out of Park Service sites around the country. But on the Appropriations Committee, I submitted this language. And Secretary Bruce Babbitt, and I quote directly from what he says when the language was being implemented, he says this, quote, in the 2000 Department of the Interior Appropriations Bill, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. inserted the language that brings us together. Note that, brings us together. The language is brief and I think suggestive of possibilities. It simply says the Civil War battle sites are often not placed in the proper historical context. And with that language, Congress directed the National Park Service to compile a report on the status of our interpretation of battlefield sites throughout the system. Then the language directed me, the secretary, to encourage Civil War battle sites to recognize and include in all of their public displays and multimedia educational presentations the unique role that the institution of slavery played in causing the Civil War. The Park Service, faithful to that mandate, has now compiled that report. It is a good report. It is quite candid. It consists of responses to a questionnaire that was sent to all of the managers of battlefield units, and those answers bear reflection. Signed, Secretary Bruce Babbitt, Secretary of the Interior. And now, just 2 days ago, fast forward to the Trump era. Interpretive materials that disproportionately emphasize negative aspects of U.S. history or historical figures without acknowledging broader context or national progress can unintentionally distort understanding rather than enrich it. National Park Service spokesman Rachel Paulwitz said in a statement, and hence, as a result of that, they struck down the language that I added to the appropriations bill, and now the slave with all of the scars on his back has been removed from National Park Service sites across the country. And that's the way I began this fight. I then reached over when it was time to add Rosa Parks' statue to Statuary Hall, which I sponsored. I got all the African-American members of Congress and the Democratic Party, and then all of the Republicans in Congress to sign on to legislation to honor Rosa Parks shortly after her death by putting her statue in Statuary Hall. I get this call from Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell says, listen, I'd like to offer an alternative piece of legislation. I said, Mr. McConnell, you got to understand that Black people have enough sense to honor Rosa Parks, so I need you to accept my legislation. He said, I'd like to offer a caveat and an amendment. I said, well, what is it, sir? He said, we have to wait 10 years until after a person has been gone before we add anything to the statuary collection. I accepted the amendment. It became the law. I'm going to come back with more of this when we come forward because it's important now that without waiting 10 years, they want to add Charlie Kirk's statue to the Capitol collection, to put Charlie Kirk's statue in the Capitol of the United States in violation of the law that Mitch McConnell and I agreed to in a bipartisan way, and President George W. Bush signed into law when he signed the Rosa Parks statue. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, their efforts to change the historical narrative of our people and our nation so that some folk don't feel guilty has really got me feeling some kind of way. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. All so that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Severe from Vicks.
Sinex Severe Nasal Spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Severe instantly relieves nasal congestion and works 6 times faster than nasal decongestant tablets. The 12 hours of relief allow you to get back to the moments that matter without congestion.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Try Sinex Severe from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and you're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our guest is a very, very special friend. Representative Cam Buckner is a native of the South Side of Chicago, the 4th child of a Chicago public school teacher and a law enforcement officer. He represents the 26th legislative district in the Illinois House of Representatives. The district, completely situated in the city of Chicago, contains parts of Chicago's South Side, South Shore, Washington Park, Woodlawn, Hyde Park, Kenwood, Bronzeville, the South Loop, Streeterville. He is Assistant Majority Leader in the Illinois House of Representatives, previously having served as Executive Director of World Sport Chicago, the nonprofit legacy of Chicago's bid for the 2016 Olympic Games, an organization that uses sports as a tool to provide positive life skill training and opportunities to youth in Chicago's most under-resourced communities. Buckner previously worked in the front office of Major League Baseball's Chicago Cubs, where he led the team's government and neighborhood relations efforts, serving as an integral part of the contingent that successfully negotiated a deal to renovate and expand the historic Wrigley Field. Representative Buckner, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
My friend and brother, it is great to be with you. Great to hear your voice.
I am so glad that you are with us today. I don't want to spend too much time in Chicago because, as you know, we're live in Los Angeles, and some of the national issues that you deal with, even at the local level, do matter to our national dialogue. First, I found it, given your interest in sports, Representative Buckner, quite curious that the National Football League would honor the late Charlie Kirk and his Second Amendment advocacy, while at the same time, most recently, having ignored and blackballed Colin Kaepernick for his gun control advocacy. I'm sure, Representative Buckner, you find that very, very interesting, given the dynamic that exists in our country today.
Yeah, curious is one way to put it for sure. I'll say this, Congressman. I think when you look at the National Football League and their history of having no true north morally or politically or socially, you look at their history of flip-flopping from one issue to another, when you look at the fact that they find a way to subjugate many of the minority men who make them a $15 billion a year behemoth, it is to me, once again, not surprising to see them try to go with the trend on this one. I just think this is one of those institutions that for a long time have done things that have been untoward. You talked about their blackballing, right, quite literally, of Brother Colin Kaepernick. And listen, I just remind folks that the NFL has a storied history. They have found a way to suppress a lot of that history, but I would ask folks to spend some time doing some research and looking up the fact that there was a 13-year ban in the early 1920s. 13 years that not draft by a black time. They suppressed that part of their history. I want everybody to pay attention because that really what this league is and how they operate it.
I appreciate that, Representative Buckner. I want you to, I'm going to need you to get into a stable location for your signal because sometimes your voice is coming in and out. So I appreciate that very much as well. Listen, while we're on the subject, I found it also particularly interesting that while African Americans had, again, and I say this respectfully, nothing to do at all based upon the present evidence with what took place in Utah the other day. And it was a great tragedy. Our prayers and condolences we still extend to the Kirk family because it was a national tragedy that never should have taken place. Get that out of the way. But let me also say, within 24 hours, 7 historically black colleges and universities found themselves on lockdown because of bomb threats and the idea that some harm could come to our children and our students in our schools on the other side of the country. I've heard some Democrats and others argue that what we really need in light of what happened, the tragedy that happened in Utah to Mr. Kirk, is more focus on the Second Amendment. But I keep asking the question, what does the Second Amendment have to do with historically black colleges and universities and what took place in Utah?
Absolutely nothing. I'm trying to get to a place where you can actually hear me, but absolutely nothing. And your question is right on point. How do our institutions become the target of threats after this happened? This had nothing to do with us. This had nothing to do with what is being taught or being embraced at HBCUs across the country. And so once again, this is America showing its ugly face. This is America showing its original aversion against black folks. This is America being who it is in full display. And we should believe America when America tells us who she is.
I was reading an interesting article. This is our third subject, and we're moving through them quickly. And I know that you have the capacity to do that because I have such profound respect for your thinking and your thought processes. I was reading a really interesting series of articles this morning about how the president and J.D. Vance have argued now that as a result of the very tragic events in Utah, that they are now going to start punishing left-leaning progressive organizations as a result of what happened in Utah. Similarly to the threats that African-American historically black colleges and universities received after just 24 hours after the tragic events occurred. What is the correlation or the relationship between progressive organizations and what happened in Utah?
There is no correlation, but what we know from our history is that when when despots, when folks who are despotic and are operating from a fascist center, when they see an opportunity to make a move, they'll make it, right? We know that, once again, this had nothing to do with progressive institutions. This had nothing to do with, quote unquote, the ideology around this, or to your earlier question about HBCUs. But what these opportunists see is an opportunity. And they're going to take that opportunity to do all they can to dismantle everything that's been worked on, all of the progress that we've made. And once again, we should not be Pollyanna-ish and pretend like this is not a direct retaliation of the things that we've worked on for years. They have tried to dismantle the Civil Rights Act. They have tried to dismantle the Voting Rights Act. This is a direct dismantling of the New Deal, many of the things that have helped put our people in better positions. And they are going to continue to attack them and assault them with all the aggression that they can find. And so, once again, we should understand what's going on here.
Mr. Leader, I'm really, really glad that you brought up the Voting Rights Act, because I shared on our show just a couple of days ago that when the President of the United States, for the most part, instructed Governor Abbott of Texas to find him 5 new congressional districts, not unlike when he asked the governor of Georgia to find him 11,700 more votes. He's always in search of votes. So now the state of Texas has implemented, or is implementing, a plan that in order to carve out 5 new districts, they have to carve up the district of Jasmine Crockett and Al Green and historically minority serving Hispanic districts in order to, quote unquote, create more Republican districts. In reaction to the state of Texas, the state of California has now advanced the idea of a new plan that could very well cut up the districts of Maxine Waters and other African Americans that hail from the state of California. Our governor, the governor of Illinois, initially suggested that he was willing to open up the Illinois plan, but with a little bit of education around the Voting Rights Act, recognizing that in order to do so, the 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 7th congressional districts could be profoundly jeopardized under that scheme. And the governor of Illinois has now appeared to, 1, respect the Voting Rights Act, and to back off of his initial plans to open the state's plan, to which he is to be credited. I want to thank you and congratulate you and the members of the Illinois Democratic legislature, but also specifically the Black Caucus, who recognizes the significance of this hour, that these districts must be kept intact.
That's absolutely right. And listen, when we get in as tumultuous a political time as we are right now, very often, we want to jump to action, and we want to be able to be responsive to what's going on quote unquote the other side. But there's framework and there's infrastructure within our democracy that has been hard fought and put there in order to keep us in a better position. And the Voting Rights Act is one of those pieces of legislation that we need to be able to not forget and embrace and build upon. And so, to your point, the 1st congressional district, the 2nd that you know very well, the 4th, the 7th, which are not just historically Black and Latino districts, but really the center of Black and Latino politics, not in this city, not in this state, but in this country. We have to keep those things intact, and we have to make sure that we are not necessarily unnecessarily overcorrecting for some of the craziness going on the other side, but being smart and methodical in how we respond.
And I appreciate that smart and methodical point of view that you've undertaken, Mr. Leader, because the chairman, for example, of the DNC, and we respect our chairman, obviously, but he said we need to stop bringing a pencil to a knife fight. And then I reminded the chairman that in order to create majority-minority districts consistent with the Voting Rights Act of 1965, that you bring a pencil to that fight because of the history of racial segregation in these communities, in these states, to which Republicans and Democrats historically have ignored. We are in a pencil fight when it comes to minority representation. For behind every one of these congressional districts is Cam Buckner and other African-American state legislators who, if the districts themselves fail or are torn apart it also tears apart our representation at the state level as well.
That's absolutely true, and that matters in real time to the people on the ground in places like Chicago and Baltimore and New Orleans and New York City and Little Rock, Arkansas, and we can go on and on and on. And so I'm glad that you made that distinction, Congressman. We do need to be able to fight aggression with aggression, but we don't throw away the pencil because we have the knife, right? We need the pencil and the knife. We need the things that we need to actually write legislation that moves us along, to bring people to the polls, and also to make sure that our maps are secure, and that we are not just being credible messengers, but we have a credible message that the people of this country can really embrace.
I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Representative, what are some of the challenges that the big, ugly bill create for you in our state? And I'm sure they're the exact same dynamics that exist in Los Angeles and in the state of California.
Yeah, in fact, Congressman, I was actually just in Los Angeles this weekend. I got back to Chicago yesterday. And many of the parallels are very clear when it comes to our health care, right? When it comes to funding our schools and our educational institutions, when it comes to making sure that we have a true safety net that doesn't necessarily make government the savior of all people, but allows us to create a situation where people can be the hero in their own story. All of this stuff is dismantled by the bill that the president has labeled the big, beautiful bill. And we know that the fact that we are now working from a deficit mindset, not a growth mindset, the things that it has put into place, once again, is putting us backwards. It's taking America back. Now, he was very clear about the fact that he wanted to make America great again, which is some nod to the nostalgic past. But we know the type of destruction that comes with that, and we are living that right now in the state of Illinois. However, this does not mean that the Illinois legislature or the Illinois government gets a pass. We don't get to take a day off because Washington is acting recklessly. What we have to do is double down and do whatever we can to protect our people. That's our schools, that's our hospitals, that's our healthcare system, that's our public safety infrastructure. That means doing all we can do to make sure that we make it very clear that the way that we operate is the way of the people, right? And so we don't get a chance to take a break. No days off for us. We got to double down. There are no excuses.
Representative Buckner, we have a little less than 1 minute before we take our 6-minute break here at KBLA. And whenever I say when we come forward, that pretty much indicates that we are there. Just a quick answer, if I might add, and maybe you can expound upon it when we come forward after the break. And that is this: what's taking place in legislative bodies across this country as they prepare to fill the gaps created by the absence of Medicare and Medicaid dollars for the poor, and the infrastructure that will be lost as the president allows an upward shift of federal resources towards the billionaire and the trillionaire class? How do leaders like yourself in the state legislature in California, obviously in Springfield, in legislatures around the country, how do you close the gaps with the absence of the protections historically offered by the federal government? I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. More with Representative Cam Buckner when we come forward.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is pressing forward with his re-election campaign despite polls showing him in 4th place.
Let me do what I do. When my campaign change, I will tell y'all when it's changed.
Adams dismissed reports he may drop out or be offered a Trump administration job, saying his campaign is just getting started. A federal appeals court has ruled Lisa Cook can remain a Federal Reserve governor, blocking President Trump's attempt to remove her. Cook, the first Black woman on the Fed board, faces unproven fraud allegations, but will attend this week's key meeting where an interest rate cut is expected. And the Trump administration is redirecting millions to HBCUs and tribal universities, shifting funds from gifted and minority STEM programs. Education Secretary Linda McMahon says the goal is to back student success. The move includes nearly $500 million for HBCUs. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Ignite your afternoons at Waba Grill's $5 happy hour with our 5-piece pork veggie dumplings and a value-sized premium beverage drink, like our tangy passion fruit lemonade. Enjoy $5 happy hour weekdays after 3 p.m. Only at Waba Grill.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Rams coach Sean McVay made a surprise announcement Tuesday morning. You need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm LA City Councilmember Curran Price, inviting you to the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September the 20th, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We've got 4 pavilions, 3 stages of live music, plus food, fun, and a marketplace all along historic Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Ave. Our featured acts this year are Gregory Porter, Pancho Sanchez, and Jasmine Horn at the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September 20th, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. along Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Avenue. Come out and bring the whole family because this legendary celebration is free. For more information, go to centralavjazzfest.com. I'm LA Councilmember Curran Price, and I absolutely approve this message.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm LA City Councilmember Curran Price, inviting you to the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September the 20th, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We've got 4 pavilions, 3 stages of live music, plus food, fun, and a marketplace all along historic Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Ave. Our featured acts this year are Gregory Porter, Pancho Sanchez, and Jasmine Horn at the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September 20th, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. along Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Avenue. Come out and bring the whole family because this legendary celebration is free. For more information, go to centralavjazzfest.com. I'm LA Councilmember Curran Price, and I absolutely approve this message.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, where our very special guest is none other than the Assistant Majority Leader in the Illinois House of Representatives, the Honorable Cam Buckner. Buckner previously worked in the front office with Major League Baseball's Chicago Cubs. He attended the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he was a member of the Fighting Illini football team and received a BA in political science. He holds a JD from DePaul University College of Law. Cam has served as an adjunct professor in the Undergraduate College of Public Policy at the University of Chicago. Representative Buckner, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Representative Buckner?
Unmute yourself.
You might have to unmute yourself. And while I wait for Representative Buckner to unmute himself, this is always my favorite part of the show, where I have to keep things moving, even as we wait for our special guest to return to the program. So, as you can see, I'm so impressed with the fluidity of Representative Buckner. And I want to say that because while we focus on the national legislature and all of the names of all of the politicians who are coming across our screens every night. Cory Booker's in a big fight today with Kash Patel. We've seen the leadership of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jasmine Crockett. We've seen Al Green fighting the president of the United States. We see Hakeem Jeffries and brother Cory Booker. These guys right here that started and brought Run DMC back. I mean, everybody's putting up the fight that they know to put up at the federal level, and that's what the news covers. But there is a fight taking place in Sacramento, California. There's also a fight taking place in Springfield, Illinois. There's a fight taking place in Austin, Texas. A fight taking place in Atlanta, Georgia. There's a fight taking place in Columbus, Ohio, in Albany, New York. Every state legislature, while they may not be making the news, there is some such fight and division that mirrors the division in the Congress of the United States. In other words, the Congress at this hour is truly representing national division, but local division is as deep as the national division is itself. And in some instances, maybe even more ferocious than what's taking place in Washington, D.C. Why do I say ferocious? Because the lights, the cameras, the action, all of that is on in Washington. The American people are tuning out to some of it, but now with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of podcasters and other mediums by which we communicate, a small story can become a big story by viral nature in just moments, making the news that we watch every day and placing it in a 24-hour cycle that has nothing to do with perfect production programming of the networks. So there is an overflow with every member of Congress having their own social media pages, releasing their own comments, their own statements. They almost don't need communications directors anymore. And these same statements are also mirrored by what's taking place in some of our state legislatures. The classic example in the last few years was what we saw in Tennessee when the Justins and a white female representative, but the two brothers were thrown out of the state legislature. They voted to keep the white lady in, but to throw the brothers out. But just like Adam Clayton Powell, after they threw him out of the Congress, the people sent one of them back and the other was obviously allowed to come back to the state legislature, because these are the kinds of fights that local Black caucuses are confronting in our state legislatures. I don't see it so much in all of the city councils around the country, although I think they can be quite disruptive and not harmonious either. But we can certainly see it at the school board. And you wait until they start trying to name schools after Charlie Kirk. Now, mind you, Charlie Kirk was a Second Amendment advocate. He believed that the Second Amendment was important in the Constitution of the United States to protect God-given rights. If the Second Amendment were in the Constitution before the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, then the God-given right that the Second Amendment protected, that Mr. Kirk believed in, was the God-given right to own a slave and to own that slave at gunpoint. Remember now, the 13th Amendment's not till 1865. The Second Amendment is 1791. So whatever Mr. Kirk refers to or referred to as the protection for God-given rights, and then they immediately tie it to the First Amendment, the right to free speech, the right to say whatever you want, the right to freedom of assembly, the right to religion, the right to go to church. I get all of that, but there's something more fundamental here. The Second Amendment protected states' rights in 1791. The right of a state to do as it chose without any responsibility to national union, to the federal government, to the idea of making a union more perfect, or keeping the American people together, or granting them what? Domestic tranquility for their posterity, hence our posterity. So, in 1791, when the founding fathers put this so-called God-given right in the Constitution to protect God-given rights, at that hour, that God-given right was the right to own a slave. Interestingly enough, the great division in the Constitution is between federal rights and state rights. Somehow, the entire republic, the House of Representatives, the federal courts, the executive branch of the federal government, is obviously subjected to the Bill of Rights. Those are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, limitations placed upon the republic. But what is so fascinating about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments when read together is this. If slavery was a state's right to be protected by the Second Amendment, then the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments reestablish that we have a human right not to be in slavery. We have a human right not to be in slavery. And therefore, as ironic as this may sound, we have a human right to protect ourselves from being in slavery with the same Second Amendment that was argued in 1791 was the right to protect slaves. So we have the right, theoretically, to own guns to protect our rights to not be in slavery or to not be treated differently. Representative Buckner, welcome forward and welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened on my end, but I'm here.
I can tell you this, you sound some kind of fantastic now. We all appreciate that. Representative Buckner, we have about a minute and a half before we come forward. I was just echoing the idea that while we see what the divisions are in the federal government, given the media attention, I can only imagine that in state legislatures around the country, that there are similar divisions that are equally as strong, if not stronger. Representative Buckner.
That's absolutely right. And you got to think about in states like Illinois, where our north border is with Wisconsin and our southern is with Tennessee. There's a lot of politics in between those two states, right? And so what you have found over the years and even right now is that there is a heightened sense of acrimony in many cases. But I truly believe that we can always find ways to disagree without being disagreeable and do what we need to do in order to move our people forward. That needs to be the bottom line, and that's how we operate on the Democratic side of the aisle in the state of Illinois.
That certainly is my hope. I can share with you this. When we come forward in the final segment of our first hour with Representative Cam Buckner, I do have some questions because some counties in downstate Illinois, because they border Indiana, for our listeners, they know that the Ku Klux Klan was founded in the state of Indiana. And on the other side of our state, those counties border Tennessee. And those Tennessee counties have also expressed displeasure with Democratic leadership, so much so that some of them have even advocated for their own form of secession. I'd like to know Representative Buckner's thoughts on how we keep MAGA in our states, change their minds, and build a more perfect state and perfect union together. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. More with the Honorable Cam Buckner when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
Dr. Renee here. Did you know this time of year is considered peak asthma season because we typically see a spike in asthma-related hospitalizations? If you have asthma and are having difficulty breathing despite medication, it's time to check in with your doctor so you can help avoid landing yourself in the hospital this season. To learn more about managing your asthma, visit www.luma-edu.com. That's LUMA-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest on our program this afternoon is the Assistant Majority Leader of the Illinois House of Representatives, Representative Cam Buckner. Representative Buckner, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you for having me, as always, my friend.
In our next hour on Tenacious Tuesdays, representing the Transformative Justice Coalition, Barbara Arnwine will be with us on our program. Looking forward to that conversation. Some parts of it will follow up on what Representative Buckner and I talked about. Representative Buckner, let me ask you a difficult question. There are some counties in Illinois that identify with the MAGA coalition. Many of them, some of them, have even suggested that they like to join bordering states, something that no legislature since the American Civil War has had to confront. As you well know, the state of West Virginia was part of the state of West Virginia until counties within Virginia decided they wanted to stay in the Union, and counties within what became Virginia decided to leave the Union. Illinois and other states are confronting such divisions within their states that have a lot to do with what's taking place in Washington, but it also has a lot to do with their perceptions of big blue cities within their states. And to some degree, the crackdown from the president of the United States in blue cities kind of fuels that fire. Representative Buckner, how can we overcome the perceptions of that division?
Yeah, well, let me say, I think this is a very important question. And I want to start off by saying that a lot of this is based on what we have, this sanitized version of history in the northern states, particularly in places like Illinois, that we have, that all of the racial animus and all of the racial terrorism that existed in this country existed south of the Mason-Dixon line. That is not true. When you look at Illinois, people look at Illinois as a free state. Illinois absolutely was a slave state. There was loopholes in the law that created the ability for enslaved people to operate and work and live in salt mine counties like Gallatin and Saline County in Illinois, where they were on plantations just as well. And so we like to paint ourselves with, and we got to talk about the fact that we've always had division in places like Illinois. But I remind people that a democracy, as people want to talk about seceding and leaving, I think that's a horrible idea, even as a person who is liberal, even as a person who believes in equality and justice, because a democracy without dissent is not a democracy at all. It's choreography, right? And I truly believe that Illinois is stronger precisely because people argue here. Sometimes we argue loudly. Sometimes we argue uncomfortably. And when voices we disagree with stay in the room gets sharper. They test our convictions. They stress test our policies. And honestly, Congressman, they keep us honest. And history shows us that progress has always needed its counterpoint. Abolition needed its critics. Labor rights needed its skeptics. Civil rights needed its opponents. The clash of ideas forces clarity, and clarity forces courage. Right. And so when people threaten to succeed or leave, what they're really saying is they don't trust the argument. But the argument to me is always the point, and it's how we get to a better version of ourselves.
I appreciate that, Representative Buckner. I should share with you after I ask this question that I always ask our guests to end on a word of hope. And I plan to leave you about 2.5 or 3 minutes towards the end of the program to do just that. But I do want to ask you this question because in a state like California, where we broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580, we have a Democratic governor in Governor Newsom. We have a mayor in Los Angeles, and one could argue, and that's Karen Bass, a great leader, by the way. And we have a mayor in San Francisco and some of the other larger municipalities that one might argue are the blue cities in that state. And so there's always been this urban, suburban, rural dynamic that exists within our states. But to work together to build a state, at least since the Civil War, the Republican Party of 1854, and of course, the Party of Jefferson, 1793, when we've evolved to this two-party system, we've found a bipartisan way in these legislatures to work together in the best interest of the entire state. And now it seems increasingly that rather than working together for the interest of the states, some of these interests are now finding comfort in trying to join other states. Isn't this problem particularly troubling the more we give it more thought?
It is extremely troubling, which is why the time is ripe now for us to be able to meet.
Representative Buckner, I'm losing you once again due to a technical difficulty. I think you might be in a difficult cellular area.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me better? Can you hear me better now?
Yes, sir. Please stand right there. Okay, I've lost Representative Buckner once again. I am profoundly struck by the idea that while we see the national divisions and we have these midterm elections to regain control of the Congress of the United States, You don't just vote for a congressman in the midterm elections. You are going to be voting up and down that ticket for Congress. All 435 seats are going to be up for grabs. In many states, you will be voting for state representatives, and whether or not state legislative bodies turn over matters to this process. 1/3 of the United States Senate will be up for election next year. School boards are up for election next year. Some county governments, many of them are up for election next year. And you are one person who walks into a polling place with one vote. And I don't want you to think that the only person when you step into the polling place to vote is your congressman. You're going to have to look at every candidate up and down that ballot and determine where they stand at this moment in history that is consistent with the truest and highest ideals of who you are, the kind of society that you want to build, the kind of relationships that you want to have with your neighbor, the end of the vitriol, the nastiness, the spitefulness, and to move our political class to a public servant class of people who are giving of themselves, and yes, sacrificially, not sticking their hands in the till or taking something from the government or cutting their own private deals, but genuinely working in the interests of the people. And don't you ever forget that your one vote does matter. When John F. Kennedy was elected president in, I think it was 1960, he won his presidential election by less than one vote per precinct. That's just how close the election was. The Congress of the United States in this country, in this redistricting period, could have just one member of Congress separating the Democratic majority or the Republican majority from holding the President of the United States accountable for his behavior and holding the federal courts accountable for their behavior. Because the Congress of the United States not only has an impeachment power of the President of the United States, the legislative body can also impeach federal judges who get it wrong and can run them out of office in that impeachment process. I cannot begin to tell you that many of the state legislatures themselves mirror the federal constitution on the question of holding the executives accountable, including but not limited to state Supreme Courts, who ultimately also must show a fidelity to the Constitution of the United States. I want to thank in a very special way Representative Cam Buckner for being our very special guest in the first hour. When we come forward, it is still Tenacious Tuesdays with the most tenacious guest that we have. Attorney Barbara Arnwine will be coming forward when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is pressing forward with his re-election campaign despite polls showing him in fourth place.
Let me do what I do. When my campaign change, I will tell y'all when it's changed.
Adams dismissed reports he may drop out or be offered a Trump administration job, saying his campaign is just getting started. A federal appeals court has ruled Lisa Cook can remain a Federal Reserve governor, blocking President Trump's attempt to remove her. Cook, the first Black woman on the Fed board, faces unproven fraud allegations, but will attend this week's key meeting where an interest rate cut is expected. And the Trump administration is redirecting millions to HBCUs and tribal universities, shifting funds from gifted and minority STEM programs. Education Secretary Linda McMahon says the goal is to back student success. The move includes nearly $500 million for HBCUs. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Ignite your afternoons at Waba Grill's $5 happy hour with our 5-piece pork veggie dumplings and a value-sized premium beverage drink, like our tangy passion fruit lemonade. Enjoy $5 happy hour weekdays after 3 p.m. only at Waba Grill.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Rams coach Sean McVay made a surprise announcement Tuesday morning. McVay told reporters that he tore the plantar fascia muscle in his right foot during the Rams' victory Sunday at Tennessee. The 39-year-old McVay said his injury was confirmed after an MRI exam on Monday. McVay suffered the injury while jogging down the sideline to get a referee's attention to call a timeout. McVay might have to wear a boot cast for a few weeks, but he is not expected to miss any games. The Rams are at Philadelphia on Sunday. Top 5 college football teams in this week's top 25 poll: Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Miami, and Georgia. 2-1 Jackson State is the only HBCU team in this week's Division I AA poll. Jackson State is ranked 16th. Alcorn State had the highest attendance for an HBCU football game over the weekend. A crowd of 49,158 showed up for Alcorn's loss at Mississippi State. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show in our second hour on Tenacious Tuesdays. We are on the grind with Barbara Arnwine. Barbara Arnwine is the president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition, internationally renowned for her contributions on critical justice issues, including the passage of the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1991 and the 2006 reauthorization and provisions of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Attorney Barbara Arnwine, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hi, it's great to see you, Jesse Jackson Jr. Thank you so much for having me today.
Are you kidding? It's even greater to see you. Should I just start the countdown? 5. Whatever's on your mind, Barbara, by the time I get to 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Stop him.
Barbara, let me ask you a question. I had Representative Cam Buckner on the previous hour, and we focus a lot about Washington and the White House and all of that stuff, but in Sacramento, California, and in Springfield, Illinois, in Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, in Albany, New York, in these state legislative bodies, there is also an activity that is taking place. A division that is taking place on the scales of what we have seen at the federal level as well. Can you share with us any thoughts or what you've been hearing about the division all the way down to the bottom of the electorate and the processes that we confront in saving our democracy?
I mean, well, obviously, based on, my new publication that actually got some press, even though they were focusing on the old one, the 72 forms of voter suppression, you will see that that's all, that's across a mighty large swath of states, swaths of states. So I'm not sure. But one thing I have been interested in is the motion that was made, the bill that California has been pushing through on reparations. to have all descendants of slavery to be able to have free tuition for any state-run college or university. I think that's amazing, and it's and that's really quite an accomplishment for the state of California.
It really is, and that's your work, and it's something we have to applaud you for.
Well, thank Sheila Jackson Lee. Thank Representative John Conyers. Thank Callie House back in the the early 1900s. Thank Queen Mother Moore. All the people who have been fighting for reparations. It is such an important subject, and it's one that instead of this country talking about people bowing down to this fake idol of the alleged peacemaker Charlie Kirk, who he was not. He was a major hater. But instead of people bowing down to that, I'm glad to see people getting real about our racial history and our racial present and trying to do something corrective about it.
Barbara, let me ask you this question. At the heart of the reparations movement is repair for damage done.
Right.
Repair for damage done. Reparations, repair for damage done.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara, isn't damage being done today?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Is there any repair? Is there any repair for what's taking place right now?
There ought to be repair immediately. I mean, I'm really upset. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm not happy, watching this administration. I mean, every day they become more and more neo-Confederate. They are, bringing out all the Confederate stops and acting more and more unhinged, every day. And so I think it's important for us to remember that the way we got through those years, the way we gotten through the worst of times, and when I say we folks, I'm talking about more than Black folks, because don't ever forget, as long as you live, 1930. What happened in 1930, folks? Don't tell me it's the Depression only. What happened in California and most of the Southwest in 1930? People have forgotten. This country, because of the Depression and the scarcity of jobs, deported 2+ million Mexican Americans, many who were born in the country, many who were citizens. They didn't care. They rounded them up, put them on trains, and shot them as fast as they could down to Mexico. I grew up in California, attended California schools, went to California colleges, very sophisticated colleges, the Claremont colleges, and private school Claremont colleges, and graduated and never had heard of 1930. Didn't know that. But if you don't know about 1930, then you don't understand the deportation era we're in right now, right? Same issue. I mean, folks think it's about, hatred of Mexican Americans. It's some good old racial hatred, but there's also some serious, unemployment problems that this country is facing. Every time capitalism has a problem, it raises, instead of talking about the economics of the problem, they love to turn to hate and imbuing hate against other people. In this situation, not only are they deporting people who they consider, Latino, based on that new case of the Nome case out of the Supreme Court saying that they can do so in this quote emergency situation. But please be very clear, folks. That number of Black women unemployed is approaching 400,000. Who is the gainer? Who has gained from Black woman unemployment in this country? Who's gained, folks? Not Mexican Americans, white men. And that's who they want to benefit.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Barbara Arnwine. She's on the grind today on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Barbara Arnwine when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Also that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Severe from Vicks.
Sinex Severe nasal spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Severe instantly relieves nasal congestion and works 6 times faster than nasal decongestant tablets. The 12 hours of relief allow you to get back to the moments that matter without congestion.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Try Sinex Severe from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on the grind with Barbara Arnwine on Tenacious Tuesday. Attorney Arnwine is the president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition. She was the head lawyer of the Committee for Civil Rights Under Law from February of 1989 until June of 2015 and holds the honorific title of President Emeritus. She has served as the Charles Hamilton Chair of the North Carolina Central University School of Law from 2016 to 2017, and has also taught at Columbia University School of Law. Attorney Barbara Arnwine, looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Representative is your title.
There are days.
Attorney
Arnwine, let me ask you a question. Can we go back to the 1930s for a minute?
Yes.
So we're in the heart of Jim Crow in 1930, assuming that Jim Crow after the Tilden Hayes Compromise and Plessy versus Ferguson in 1930 is obviously before Brown versus the Board of Education. So we're in one of the most violent periods in American history. I wake up the other morning and I hear about a young man having been lynched
Yes.
at a college and
Oh my goodness.
university. And of course, the police immediately say that it's not what we think it is, it's suicide. But who goes to school in this particular state and then decides to commit suicide by hanging themselves from a tree? Kind of strange fruit, in my opinion. But I get this feeling that we could be looking at a very, very, very violent period. And I know in the post-Obama era, everybody wanted to jump to, third Reconstruction and the la land that the Obama administration and that moment in American history represented. But as well as I do, from the Redeemers to the first Reconstruction to the Jim Crow period, there is always this period of Jim Crow. And every single day that I wake up, I've never lived through a Jim Crow period, but it does feel like something here is happening that isn't about the reconstruction of the nation. It's some kind of Jim Crow 2.0 that I really can't put my fingers around. Please help us.
Yes, I mean, people need to understand that one of the consistent realities in U.S. society is that because we live in a white structural racist society, that it's never failed to do two things. You find me in an era where this isn't true. It's never failed to advantage whites and to disadvantage blacks. No period. Reconstruction, even that didn't mean that whites lost, political power. Whites held, co-power with blacks. It's fascinating that during this whole period, there's always been racial fascism. We're not taught that, but we need to learn it, folks. There's always been racial fascism. There's always been racism based on skin color and sometimes ethnicity and skin color. There's always been, this hatred and fear of the quote other, and so Native Americans have had to suffer. Latinos have had to suffer. Asian Americans, some of those Chinese exclusion acts.
Yeah, Chai Chin-Pin versus the United States was the railroad case.
Don't they? Don't they? And that, but the one thing people don't understand is that racism doesn't work unless it's maintained by racial control. Racial control means that you got to have some fascistic elements, because you got to be able to tell those folks they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't be here, they can't own this, they can't own that. And you got to, monitor their speech, monitor their behavior. So you always have this fascistic racial control, and there is no racial control without violence. The deployment of law enforcement with militaristic weapons and the capability of assaulting entire communities. People got to just look at our history. Everywhere you look in our history, you'll find it. The only bombs that have ever been, that we know of, that have been purposefully used against American citizens were what? Tulsa in 1921 on Black Wall Street, and Move
in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
You got it.
They dropped the bomb on them. They sure did.
And people don't understand that racial fascism is real. James Baldwin wrote about it. Langston Hughes wrote about it. Toni Morrison wrote about it. That we know what fascism looks like. We don't just need to look at the German example, because German got its own model from us. People don't realize that the Jim Crow laws were the beginning of the Germany's racial exclusion and genocidal policy.
And the South Africans came here to study Southern Jim Crow laws before they went back and implemented apartheid in South Africa.
You got it. I mean, it was the U.S. fascism model, the U.S. genocidal racial model that they studied. And if people think we're making it up, look at the book. It's called Hitler's American Model. And this has been documented about what happened. So people don't understand that racial fascism has always been with us, and it blows up at times. It has blown up evilly, with all the lynchings. Woo! Over 8,000 people lynched. It's blown up, through the ages, and remember that the lynchings weren't just the Black folks. A lot of Latino men and women were lynched. Just don't want folks to, get confused. Native Americans, don't forget, who they lynched. The other thing I want, people to understand is that the Japanese internment, that was another one of these blow up racial fascism moments. The 1930 Mexican, what they call it? They didn't call it deportation, people. They call it the Mexican repatriation of 1930. So, people need to understand that this kind of racist impulse always, and this fascistic impulse is part of the American DNA. So we shouldn't be, shocked, horrified, don't know what to do, lost. This is to be expected. What we got to do is change the dynamics so it stops. And that means the only way we get there is by a true representative democracy, which we've never had in this country. Never. And I've never had a true multiracial representative democracy. When we get there, that's when we will have the opportunity for a larger gender justice, larger, more equity in everything. So I just think that, when I see this whole thing saying we're going to have a memorial for Charlie Kirk, we're going to lower the flag, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we should put a statue of him up in the Capitol. It reminds me of Robert E. Lee. Because your parents and my parents grew up having to what? Having state holidays, Robert E. Lee state holidays.
That's right.
Come on now. And who was Robert E. Lee? He was a general, a Confederate general, head of the Confederacy, who wanted to keep us in slavery.
The Northern Army of Virginia.
You got it. And people get confused, and they don't understand that that's also part of fascism's role, is to always put up idols and to deny the truth and to force people around them to suspend the truth. Remember, I was telling you about the Nazi Jesus, right? The idea that somehow Jesus was born in Germany and that he was, their Nazi king, and he went to the Middle East and got crucified. And just came up with a whole irrational nun. He was not, he was not Jewish. He was not Aramaic. He was, German.
And Aryan.
Yeah, right. Aryan blood. They just make this stuff up.
Barbara,
And
Barbara,
we're supposed to suspend what we know as a fact.
Barbara, let me ask you something about this. Let me ask you something about this game that I think is being played on our minds. So when Trump, and I think we can probably pinpoint it somewhere in Jim Crow, but I'm going to ask your expertise. When Trump talks about making America great again, his mind seems to be fixed in a certain period of American history, based upon his behaviors and based upon your interpretation, which is largely based on hindsight. About what time range and period is Donald Trump's mind on this question?
We know that he's a big admirer of Andrew Jackson's. Okay? So go back to the Andrew Jackson.
So the 1828?
Around that time, right? Around the 1830s. That. But we also know that based on where his MAGAites are, that they're thinking 1950, right? They're probably somewhere in the 1950. And what is that? That's the height of Jim Crow. That's the height of suppression. People, that's the height of overt racism, gender injustice. All of that. And so that's what most people, when they're talking about going back to the good old times, they're talking about in 1950, but a whole lot of them are talking about the 1800s before the Civil War. Did you see that MTG just called for, quote, a national divorce? What's that, folks? That's
What is a national divorce? What is that?
War. It's about Civil War again.
Oh, got it.
And these people are so lost that you got to understand that some of them, I think, are back in the 1600s. I mean, they're so retrograde. But we have to be better than that, right? We gotta that doesn't mean we make ourselves victims. We gotta be very clear that as we fight forward to a better democracy, that it's imperative that we get there. It's the only way to make sure that another generation won't be brought and not embraced but smothered in the same kind of racist fascism cycle that the U.S. experiences. And
Barbara,
we got to fight it. We got to
Barbara,
fight it.
let me ask you a quick question before we come forward. I know we have about 4 minutes, and I want to set this
Yes.
question up
Okay.
as right as I can. I reminded some people the other day that while we're into the politics of the moment, the Democrats versus Republican, which includes the efforts of Abbott, the efforts of Newsom, the efforts of other governors in other states to redraw their states, and in my opinion, both sides now ignoring the Voting Rights Act of 1965 in their rush to control a legislative body. Obviously, the losers in that dynamic are us. I reminded people the other day that this district was drawn when James Orange, these districts were drawn when James Orange had been registering students to vote in Marion, Alabama.
Yes.
And then he was accused of corrupting the youth. A rumor was going around town that night that they were going to lynch a man, and a church next door to the jail of African Americans gathered in that sundown town to surround the jail and protect it. And when they came out of that church that night, there were 200 state police officers there, and they put a whooping on the entire congregation. And Jimmy Lee Jackson's mother ran out of the church,
Yes.
ran into a restaurant.
Right.
He covered his mother with his body. He was a Korean
Yes.
veteran,
Yes.
got shot once or twice, lived a day or two longer. Dr. King, Abernathy, James Bevel, Andy Young came and preached his funeral, laid him to rest on that road at that little side cemetery that exists there. And James Bevel comes up with the idea of the march from Selma to Montgomery. I remind people, and that march took place 2 weeks later, that the same state police officers that were in front of that church that night were the same state police officers who met John Lewis when he crossed that bridge.
Yes.
That led to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Therefore, Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong, James Orange, Jimmy Lee Jackson, Viola Luizzo, and James Reeb drew these congressional districts.
Yes.
Am I right?
Oh, absolutely, folks. Oh, thank you for recounting that history, because they beat Black folks. I mean, people just don't understand. 1965, less than 5% of all Blacks in the South are registered to vote because of using jelly bean jars and all these, and violent threats. I was talking on a show yesterday. Never forget.
Barbara,
Yes.
I got to go forward at the half hour. When we come forward more with Barbara Arnwine on KBLA Talk 1580,
Yes.
she will pick up on this point when we come forward. I'm Jesse Jackson here.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump has ordered the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee to fight crime, a move drawing pushback from local Democrats. Black State Rep Justin Pearson is urging residents to oppose the deployment.
Militarized occupation of our city is not a resolution to the problems that we have.
Tennessee's Republican Governor Bill Lee supports the plan. Black Fulton County, Georgia DA Fonnie Willis has been permanently removed from Trump's Georgia election case over her relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. The Georgia Supreme Court refused to hear her appeal, though Willis says she'll turn over the case file and evidence to state prosecutors. And President Trump is threatening to retake control of D.C.'s police if Black Mayor Muriel Bowser blocks cooperation with ICE. He called his earlier 30-day takeover a success, while Bowser insists immigration enforcement is not MPD's role. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Ignite your afternoons at Waba Grill's $5 happy hour with our 5-piece pork veggie dumplings and a value-sized premium beverage drink, like our tangy passion fruit lemonade. Enjoy $5 happy hour weekdays after 3 p.m. Only at Waba Grill.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Rams coach Sean McVay made a surprise announcement Tuesday morning. McVay told reporters that he tore the plantar fascia muscle in his right foot during the Rams' victory Sunday at Tennessee. The 39-year-old McVay said his injury was confirmed after an MRI exam on Monday. McVay suffered the injury while jogging down the sideline to get a referee's attention to call a timeout. McVay might have to wear a boot cast for a few weeks, but he is not expected to miss any games. The Rams are at Philadelphia on Sunday. Top 5 college football teams in this week's top 25 poll: Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Miami, and Georgia. 2-1 Jackson State is the only HBCU team in this week's Division I AA poll. Jackson State is ranked 16th. Alcorn State had the highest attendance for an HBCU football game over the weekend. A crowd of 49,158 showed up for Alcorn's loss at Mississippi State. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Whoa, whoa.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least likely to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfiresupport@QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Nation's Tuesdays on our show, and we're on the grind with Barbara Arnwine. And just before the break, we were talking about the men and the women who wrote the Voting Rights Act of 1965 in their blood. Yes. When I think about the Voting Rights Act, for example, in the state of California, I think about Sidney Kamalager-Dove, Latifah Simon, Maxine Waters. These congressional districts are also part of the story.
Yes.
That was written between Marion, Selma, and Montgomery, Alabama. Barbara, just before the break, you were commenting on the significance of that history.
Yes. I mean, we paid a lot for the Voting Rights Act. 600 people beaten senselessly, tear gas, chased by horses, just senselessly, poor Amelia Boynton Robinson knocked unconscious. For the rest of his life, our good friend John Lewis had the scar. Mm-hmm. Other people lost eyes. People just don't know, the tragedy that has been left in the wake of the fight for civil rights, because they didn't give them to nobody. It was a battle. Think about it. After Swerner, Goodman, and Cheney were killed, and they were dredging the river looking for their bodies. Remember, they found at least 18 to 20 other bodies of Black people who they believe were disappeared. And so when we're in this era and we're looking at all these lynchings going on, just a side note, we got to be worried, because there's been three this year. I mean, three in the last several days. It's time for us to be very honest about the nature of, so many people who live in this country. But the Voting Rights Act was a fight. And what I want to say to everybody listening, if you know a living foot soldier who was on that bridge in 1965, a living foot soldier, call me, contact me, write me, because we're collecting all of their stories, and we're looking at making a presence in the Supreme Court. So we need to hear from them. So if you know anyone who was on that bridge and is living, please contact us at info@tjcoalition.org, info@tjcoalition.org, because I want people to know that these foot soldiers who marched on that bridge in 1965 demanding a Voting Rights Act, got beaten, came back and did a march, weeks later to when it was permitted by the judge to Montgomery, that they still want to protect their Voting Rights Act. And they have protected it, some of them all their lives. They've been advocates for the Voting Rights Act. So we want to give them an opportunity to come forth and be heard. So next week, my organization is having a reception in honor of the foot soldiers during the Congressional Black Caucus. Some people just want to dance. They want to get some celebs and hang out. We're going to have some foot soldiers at our reception on Wednesday, the 24th. I hope you'll come. I hope that you'll be there because it's going to be a real tribute to their sacrifice. Like you said, this act was bought. It was bought through sacrifice.
We will be broadcasting our show live in Washington, D.C. during the Congressional Black Caucus weekend, where we hope to have access to many of the guests who will be in attendance that week. I should share with you, in terms of the timeline that Barbara just created for my initial memory, my father I was born in 1965, March 11th, 1965. So my dad wanted to name me Selma when I came into the world. That's how momentous the occasion was. Martin Luther King Jr. would be assassinated in 1968. I would be 3 years old. That would make my dad 28 years old. When he was in Selma in 1965, he would be 25 years old. Therefore, the foot soldiers that Barbara Arnwine is talking about, given that my father is going to celebrate his 84th birthday in October, they're somewhere around 84 years old.
Yes, and most
85
of them.
years old, 86 years old, maybe a little younger.
Yes.
83 years old, 82 years old.
We have some that are 77.
That's
76.
right there in that space is what she's talking about. And some of these foot soldiers are still with us.
Yes.
And you're going to document their work, I guess, also for the court record.
Yes.
As living testimonials to the court record, probably in the Robinson versus Clay case, as well as the Turtle Mountain case.
Well, the Robin versus Calais case has closed. We wouldn't be able to do it there, but there are other cases coming up even before Turtle Mountain, raising this issue of private right of action. I've been following the court. Is a lot of developments in the court. So we, because some are coming through mandatory jurisdiction, right? So there may be this issue might be heard sooner than later. But we want to make sure that the voices of these amazing foot soldiers are heard in this fight. Because sometimes, folks, you know, remember, I'm going to put my hand on the plow. I'm going to be on the battlefield until I die. So some of people, we're serious about that we are on this battlefield for justice for the rest of our life until it's won. I think of Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer, 64 president, goes through all kinds of gyrations to discredit her because she's trying to have a segregated delegation for Louisiana unseated. And he goes through all this and describes her as an uneducated.
It's the Mississippi delegation.
Yes, the Mississippi delegation. And in Atlantic City, right? In 64. And they're trying to, to discredit her. And he calls a press conference, does all this. But one thing people don't know about Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer, when Big Duck went to visit her, she took Big Duck, who's Mr. Smith, one of the Freedom Riders. She took him to her door of her house and she said, "Look at this." And her door had 50 gunshots and wounds in it. 50. Wow. You heard me. I didn't say 5. I said 50, folks.
Wow.
And she said, "This is what the battle looks like." That's what she said to him. This is what it means. Because he had been involved in a sit-in where they had burned his neck or burned the necks of some of the people, thrown stuff on them, all that evil that they did to those integrators of those facilities.
Barbara?
And she was just making it clear to him that this is a major fight.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. More on the grind with Barbara Arnwine, and a word of hope from Barbara Arnwine when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
If you're an African American mom who is pregnant or have a baby under 6 months old, you deserve care that lifts, listens, and lasts. Black Infant Health is for you. It's a free program with individual support, group sessions, and resources to start your mothering journey. BIH makes space for moms and their families to create community. Learn more about the programs in Los Angeles County. Check us out at blackinfanthealth.org.
Want to extend that barbershop shave at home? Try Gillette Skin Guard, designed specifically for men who battle shaving irritation. With this irritation defense bar, 2 comfort blades, and a touch of aloe, it helps avoid shaving bumps and irritation, leaving me looking my best. I find it perfect for when I need a clean, fresh look, especially between barber visits. Tailored for Black men, it's easy to use and offers the comfort my skin deserves. Stay confident between cuts with Gillette Skin Guard.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on and in the final segment on KBLA Talk 1580 on the grind with Barbara Arnwine. This again is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. She is the president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Barbara, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks for having me so much.
Barbara, I am struck by a number of things that are happening in this moment. We see the president removing the scarred African-American slave gentleman who had been beaten
Oh, that's horrible.
to change the narrative. Our Voting Rights Act is under attack and could be gutted in such a way that leaves it essentially as an act that is symbolic, but nothing substantive capable of creating future congressional districts or even maintaining the ones that we do have. I saw a press conference this week with Cleo Fields, who has been through the voting rights struggle with the 4th Congressional District of Louisiana probably longer than any other congressman in the Congress. They ran him out of Congress the first time over the shape and size of his district.
Yes.
Even though the state warranted the creation of a district to represent African Americans who have been victims of historic racial discrimination. But here he is back in the Congress again, still standing tall. And once again, Louisiana is coming after his district again. And it was a very meaningful press conference that he had, sharing and issuing a warning to African Americans all across the country that we could have 0 African Americans in Congress by the decennial census, or certainly by the reapportionment plans, as early as 2032. Your thoughts, Barbara?
Yes. Your dad has said it the best. You can only win if you fight. And in this era, people, you got to step up. I know it's not what people want to hear, because they want to be like, when do I not have the fight? It's almost like, I'm sad to tell you that when you live in a white structural racist society, that's like asking, when do I don't have to breathe? If you want to live, you have to breathe. If you want to have justice, you got to fight for it. I feel for Cleo Fields because I know what he's going through. But let's be clear. They're not just coming, Jesse, for his district. They're coming for the Voting Rights Act.
That's correct.
They filed papers saying that the Voting Rights Act itself is unconstitutional. That racial relations and racial justice is so widespread now that there's no discrimination in voting, and that there should be no Voting Rights Act, therefore. So he's lying again and trying to impose a false reality. People, on October the 15th, wherever you are in this country, you can do 2 things. You can either join us at the steps of the Supreme Court. We will be out in front of the Supreme Court having a major demonstration.
When will this be, Barbara?
October the 15th at 9 a.m. The argument in the court is at 10. And we'll be out there as early as 8 o'clock, setting up, getting ready. We invite people to come stand with us. If you're not able to be there, of course, most people can't. Listen to the argument on supremecourt.org, I believe. And you can hear that argument and be sure that you are paying attention, because justice dies in the dark when light is not shone on the problem of the injustice. It's up to us to make sure that people know what's at stake. That's why those foot soldiers, these 60 years later, are still on this battleground. That's why we need you to take strong interest. I know people say, Barbara, it's not fair. Why do I have to go through all of this? And the reality is that we have to fight, no matter what we feel about it. I think about Harriet Tubman, falling asleep in those bushes because she had that, that injury from the metal object that was thrown and hit her in the head. So she would have these horrible, sleep occurrences where she would just drop asleep in the middle of a walk, middle of a talk, etc. But I think about her always and about how that didn't stop her, that she kept going. And they said that when she would wake up a lot of times from those deep sleeps, that she would wake up with vision. She would say that God spoke to her during that time, and she would do something new and amazing. So, I just want people to have courage, have heart, and have a sense of your own personal power, because it's the small. I met one thing I should tell you is I had the joy of meeting some of the leaders of the Free DC movement this last weekend, and I just love them. These are not, big old philosophy majors. They're not professors at colleges. These are people who said, I won't let my city be trodden down, and I'm going to fight. And so it's the average people who come together to fight for change and make change happen in
Barbara,
great and amazing ways.
Barbara, I agree with you. And I get so much hope and inspiration from hearing you on this show every Tuesday. But I feel like Hoppin' Bob in the movie Life, when he turns to the overseer and says, they tired, boss. They tired. New York City, them boys tired, boss. That's what they say, boss. Barbara, I'm tired. And I say that in a loving but hopeful and determined way, because I keep hearing it from people. We're tired of trying to save America.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're tired of trying to make America or encourage or persuade America to do right. We're tired of putting the flag in front of the mirror and saying, look at how these stars were added to the flag in the first place. One free and one slave. We're tired, Barbara. We tired, boss. We tired. Tired of second-class schools. Tired of being the first people to lose health care. Tired of second-class housing. Tired of the ghetto. We tired, boss.
Mm-hmm.
We tired of having to fight for our God-given rights.
Mm-hmm.
The king kept saying and telling us that this house is burning, and we integrating into something that looks like it's going to hell real fast.
Mm-hmm.
None of these checks and balances that they told us we were subjected to apply to anybody but us.
Yes.
Ain't no checks and balances.
People,
ain't no three branches of government. These branches of government form a single house. Barbara, these last 2 minutes, I just want to say before I get these last 2 minutes, I'm tired, Barbara.
I know he's tired. And so was Fannie Lou Hamer. She said she was tired of being sick and tired. People, please go watch the Alfred Street church service from this last weekend and listen to the pastor.
Oh, he did that thing, didn't he?
Oh, he killed it. Come on, folks, because he's not only just sick and tired, he's mad as hell. and he talked about how it took, how he almost lost his religion. Watching that EJI hanging museum and looking at the hypocrisy of this administration. But one thing he reminded us in is that we have to internally be able to go to higher ground, to the rock, to the highest rock, because the reality is that you're going to be tired. Tired don't do nothing. I mean, tired ain't going to change the darn thing. It is engagement and action that makes things change. And that's been true yesterday, true today, true tomorrow.
I appreciate you, Barbara. This is On the Grind with Barbara Arnwine. You've been listening to the great Barbara Arnwine on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Barbara, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your show. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you for your spirit, and thank you for all that you do. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump has ordered the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee to fight crime, a move drawing pushback from local Democrats. Black State Rep Justin Pearson is urging residents to oppose the deployment.